Hello, and welcome to this episode of Women in Engineering, Success Stories from STEM Professionals. Today, I'm thrilled to sit down with Cassie Shum, Vice President of Field Engineering at RelationalAI. We will be talking about the evolving challenges in the engineering field, the future of engineering with generative AI, and promising applications of AI in and outside the tech sector. I am your host, Tiffany Teachy, a senior mechanical engineer, STEM advocate, TEDx international speaker, and an internationally recognized author of children's books, including What Can I Be? STEM Careers from A to Z, and the STEM Crew Kids Adventure series. I also host the Read Write Radio Show on WDRB Media, owner of Thrive Edge Publishing, and owner publishing consultant of Inspired Authors Publishing. Today, I have with me Cassie Shum. Welcome, Cassie, to the Women in Engineering podcast.
Hello. Thank you, Tiffany, for having me.
Yes. All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into it. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your career path in the technology field that led you to your current role at RelationalAI?
Oh, yeah. No, I will first say it's been a great journey. I started, I'm going to age myself here, but I would say over 17 years ago as a software engineer. So I've traditionally been in software, been as an individual contributor, pretty much worked in a few companies and then landed in a company called ThoughtWorks that I worked at for about 12 years of my career. And in that particular company, I played many different roles. So I went all the way from software engineer to a tech lead, did a little bit of specialty around mobile when iOS and Android were all the rage and still are. But I thought I caught the wind of that. Got a little bit bored of the front end and then just kind of moved all the way to cloud and infra for a little bit. And then realized I just like it all. So I've been playing a role in enterprise architecture and solution architecture for many, many years now. And then when I left ThoughtWorks, I was leading up a group of architects and engineers out of North America, out of ThoughtWorks. And then I wanted to change. I wanted to change from services and consulting, and I wanted to move to a product company. So my next role after that is I now lead up the field engineering group at RelationalAI. So that's a very succinct version of my journey, but very technical in nature and just a wonderful journey. So
love it. Love it. Now, I know mentorship is important when it comes to these type of careers and jobs and everything. So, how do you think, as far as when we talk about the importance of mentoring, how does that play a role with all that you've been able to accomplish with where you are today?
Tiffany, I will say this, without mentorship, I would definitely not be where I am today. I have a slew of mentors that I have known over the years. Most of them I still talk to on like a monthly or even a weekly basis. And even that I've picked up a lot of mentees because I really truly believe in not only paying it forward, but really how do we grow the next generation of an amazing technology group coming up. So I will probably attribute a good portion of my career when I was moving a little bit from being an individual contributor to more managing people and really driving team building and understanding how to drive outcomes for your own organization, your own team, your own project. And so in that transition period, I actually had quite a few mentors. One of them I'll call out was our CTO at ThoughtWorks. Her name was Rebecca Parsons. It's Rebecca Parsons, and she's one of those people I look up to as a leader in technology. And I think it's really just useful to even see folks in those different roles because that gives you your own trajectory and your own thought process of what is possible or not possible. But without some of those, the guidance, the coaching, all of the just inspiration from folks like Rebecca and many, many other people, I'm not exactly sure where I would be right now. I'm not sure where I would have gotten the confidence and the experience and really purely the opportunities that were given to me as well. So, yeah. Very
Yes, that's
important.
awesome. Yeah, and that's key. He's like, you wouldn't even know where you would be today. So
No, I
thank
didn't.
you, and shout out to your mentors that you've had and you continue to have in your life. So what are some of the biggest challenges, there's obstacles, that engineers currently face?
I would probably look at that question as I think engineers currently face things that they've always faced as well, just maybe in different paradigms. So one of the things that I think about and talk about is like how does engineering first really think about the ecosystem of technology and where they themselves would either make an impact or really think about the outcomes that they're trying to drive to within their group, within their team, within their organization, and really trying to drive to success on that one. So I think fundamentally, engineers, we always deal with those kind of things. And so the biggest challenges I see today are there's just so many options. There's so many different solutions. There's so many different architectures. There's different tools. There's different technologies. And being able to focus and not get what I call shiny object syndrome all the time, I think is a very useful tool because in the end of the day, being an engineer and actually using technology actually is kind of a means to an end. At the very end of the day, we have outcomes that we want to deliver. We have success criteria to actually drive to both within our organization, the company that we're at, the team we're on. So yeah, I think that's the biggest one. And so just to sort of lead up to shiny object syndrome and getting inundated with all of these different things, engineering productivity can take a huge hit if you are distracted by a lot of different things or if you're focused on the wrong different things. So a bit of a passion of mine as well as I don't want to say side project, but something I think about a lot when I think about engineering and their productivity and effectiveness. So
Love it. Love it. I mean, that is key. Staying focused. Yes. So let's talk about future wise. Where do you see the future as it relates to generative AI?
Yeah, hot topic right now, for sure. I think one of the biggest things I see, at least with engineers and generative AI, is there's many different things. But the one, again, as I was speaking to earlier, is around how do we become more productive as engineers, as teams, to really driving some of these outcomes that we're looking at. I think there's a whole new wave, at least in productivity tools. For example, I look at things like Copilot. I look at things like even just writing documents and using ChatGPT and really taking some of these, what I call commoditized type of actions that we do. How do we actually streamline those types of things and then have us focus on the real differentiators as engineers, as technologists? And this spans not just within technology, but everywhere else, right? And so I think that's the dream. I think that's what we're aiming to figure out how Gen AI can really help what we call enable technologists. But I think we still have a bit to go, right? Like I've been playing around with some of these tools and I think they're fabulous. I think there are a lot of things and a lot of great opportunities, but in the end of the day, we also need foundations. Like as an engineer, there are key foundational things in terms of designing your code, good practices, cleaning up after, repos and things like that, that we have to still keep in mind. And we can't have a tool just kind of magically fix all those things for us. So being able to, keep the fundamentals in place and ensure that we are still teaching those things, I think that's really important, even with all the tools that are coming to bear right now. So
I love it. I mean, that's key, the human side of things and not just relying on those tools. They're helpful, but yes, don't be reminded of the foundation. I love how he's like, bring it back to the foundation. Yes. So I think that's really key. But as we talk about AI, AI promises big productivity gains in theory, but that doesn't always translate to the real world. And why is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's actually how you measure productivity too. So what are you actually measuring? And then we can see, like, does it actually give you what gains you're looking for? What are the gains? That would be my first question I would ask before you even measure to see if something has given you a gain or not giving you a gain. So is the question, do engineers write code faster with Gen AI? They might, but they might be writing bad code faster, right? So does that help your productivity overall in the grand scheme of things? Probably not. So I do think there is a lot of opportunity with what we have here. It's just about honing in some of those tools, and yeah, kind of going back to my earlier point, like what does success actually mean, and how do you align on those success criteria? So I'm probably moving away from the question a little bit, but it always goes back to people and technology, right? So usually technology is not the blocker in a lot of these areas. It's actually the people. It's actually trying to align with teams, with stakeholders, with customers, and really understanding and empathizing what things are, and then using the tools to enable that. If you miss that first part, then I can have all the Gen I in the world, and not sure if I will accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. So, yeah.
I think that's it. Now, I know you touched on the foundation, but we're going to bring it back again. Why is the foundation the key to implementing AI effectively in the workplace?
This is a big one. I'll probably revolve a little bit around data and data-centric architectures in my head, because I'm a little bit biased to where I work. But essentially, in order for any type of AI, any type of analytics, any type of deep learning models, the key of it is your data. Like if you don't have either the correct data or the normalized data, or you have silos and silos and silos of dirty data around, then it is only just as powerful as what your data is, right? So when I go back to foundations and fundamentals, a lot of it is really looking at how are you architecting your systems? How do you design systems where you have access to all of the data? Sometimes you think about data warehouses and having that all in one place. Sometimes you think about your data in itself being normalized to a point where it's accessible for models and training and things like that. In the new world of Gen AI, like how do you actually use retrieval augmented generation, right? So RAG type of applications all depend on the core data that feeds the models. So when I think about these kind of things, these foundations are really, really important, because if I just come in and throw Gen AI on data that doesn't work, then it's like, what was it? Garbage in, garbage out, right? And so I'd love, as I talk about all of these things, a lot of the foundational bits that we work on as a company, and as many other companies I see, is like, how do we get our data right first? And then how do we apply these wonderful tools on top of it to really gain the insights that we're looking for, to really, drive productivity, drive a business, and drive, whatever the success criterias are. And really, in the end of the day, it's actually getting all of that in the right place first. So that's usually step one. And people like to skip the step 1 and step 2 and maybe step 3, because it can be not as glamorous, but right. At the same time, it has to happen before everything else comes to play. So
that's good. And you know what, when you said that garbage in, garbage out, I actually came to mind when you said that too. So yeah, that data, it's all about what you put in there, and that's it. And you can, good or bad, when it comes to that, putting it in. So thank you for sharing that. Now let's talk about it. Is staying relevant as a software engineer amid new technologies and all the industry technology noise harder today?
If you have my honest opinion, I would say yes. I have come, again, aging myself, but I've come in from a world where I was part of the 3-tiered architecture, right? It was quite simple. It's like a Java middle layer, and then web front end, and then some data store in the back. And so we had very few technologies. We had very few languages. We had really just the core principles and some of the things that we were looking at back then. So in comparison to then and now, yes, there's a lot going on. But if I look at even just in the past 5 to 10 years, I think the technology sprawl has been a thing for quite some time now. So it does get difficult, because with many, many different options, you can get into analysis paralysis. And so I find that a lot of organizations that I work with kind of get into some of that analysis paralysis, because they're like, oh, well, there's this, and then maybe we should try this, and blah, blah, blah. And then you create a bit of your own big ball of mud, as we would call it, right? So a very complex system that's overly complex, because You have the shiny object syndrome. You want to apply this. You actually, pulling all of these different things in, and really like goes back to those foundations, right? I'm going to always pull back to it. So if you design your system correctly, if you design things in a way that's scalable, performant, and have a lot of those abilities in mind, then you can kind of evolve with a lot of the technology changes that come about, right? But there's a lot to to consume, and it's hard to keep up with everything. So I will admit that.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, staying up to the trends and all that is important. Definitely, constantly something's changing. So that's important to stay up to as well. So what does the concept of community entail within the engineering sector?
Yeah, I took this question in terms of like, how do we learn within our community, and how do we actually share knowledge across different sectors, different groups, different locations? Because cross-functional collaboration, just empowers more. So sort of the opposite of like, oh, we have so many technologies and so many things to learn from. You also can learn it from a lot of different people as well. So it does embrace that as well. I think it's evolved over time, but I do think community is still very, very important to share knowledge. You can't just sit in a silo thinking about your own thoughts, and it's really about collaboration and getting others' opinions. It's also, relying on other people's expertise, also relying on other people's like new eyes into a situation. I have many experts who work on something, and sometimes that new fresh pair of eyes coming in to collaborate actually gives a different opinion. So I always embrace community building and really collaboration across different groups, because it brings a diversity of thought. And those diversity of thoughts can actually make solutions a lot stronger. It could get you out of your silos and things like that. The evolution, I think, I remember pre-COVID, we created different meetup groups, and we were, learning about different architectures and learning about different things. And so, of course, when we had to go to a pretty much remote world, and that changed the dynamics a bit. And that also changes how humans just interact with each other. Zoom fatigue is a real thing. and being able to have like just even sidebar conversations, those water cooler conversations, I actually really missed during that time. But now that we're back, a lot of companies are back in the office and back in this world, I'm finding that's coming back a lot again. So being able to pass by and what I call osmosis of information from people is more that natural community that I'm excited we're embracing again now that we're all hopefully back to normal-ish.
I don't think it's ever going to be back to normal, but yes, it's a new norm.
A new normal.
Love it. Love it. Now, finally, what final piece of advice do you have for women looking to grow their careers in engineering?
Yeah, you say one final advice?
Come on with more.
Give a couple.
Give a couple. We got give us a couple.
I'll tap on the one that we brought up earlier just to bring it back is mentorship. Look to those for mentorship, from coaching. Ask for help, right? Like those are areas where I think a lot of where I've walked into like forks in the road of like decision making and things that seemed like big decisions were never done in isolation by myself. I talked to everyone. I talked to my mentors. I talked to my coaches. I really thought through a lot of these things. Some of the advice was like, just go for it, right? But even sometimes you just need someone to tell you that. So I would say that's the one thing is collaborate, like use your communities, use your mentors, reach out to go find mentors, like all of those things. This is really, really huge, at least for me and my career. I think the second one is interesting for me because I switch this advice sometimes. I used to say yes to everything. Don't turn down any opportunities until you understand what it is. I now will say yes to any opportunities you don't understand and you want to learn more about, but also know how to say no when you are overstretched and when you are now getting to a point where you're not your true awesome self, right? So I've amended that rule over the years because, you have to look at yourself. You're the best version of yourself. And so don't stretch yourself too thin on all of the different things and think about, what the next road leads and everything like that. So those are probably my two big good pieces of advice. They usually go together, actually.
Love it. Love it. This is great advice. I mean, thank you so much, Cassie. So talk to us and tell us how can people find out more about you if you want to share other ways and people can get in touch with you.
Sure.
Find more.
I'm normally on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably the best way to get a hold of me. I would just say look me up there. And then that's probably it.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, Cassie, I hope our listeners have been taking notes because you've been dropping some gems. And thank you for all the advice and everything that you've been able to share with us today.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tiffany, for having me today. This has been wonderful.
Yes. Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you won't miss our upcoming episodes featuring interviews with inspiring women engineers, discussions about industry trends, and much more. Go to womeninengineeringpodcast.com where you will find a summary of the key points discussed in today's episode, as well as links to any of the resources, websites, or books mentioned during this episode. Until next time, may your engineering endeavors be as remarkable as the women whose stories we're sharing. Stay curious, keep innovating, and engineer a better future.